Hello and welcome back to Laughing Dragons MPX 20K Modern Headline Event. That is a title, let me tell you. How you doing, Noah?
I'm doing good, Brad. Happy to, be back. About to cover some awesome matches for everybody out here. Should be lots of fun.
Yeah, we've had some good ones today. I know we just had a couple of interesting ones, Dimir versus Boris Burn, but we're going to see something else. What's on deck?
Yeah, so here we've got, Austin Silva against Jonathan Chu. And Austin Silva is playing the 5-color creativity deck. So it's a deck that has kept, popular for the last couple months of Modern. Definitely been one of the top dogs, before the One Ring and Orcish Bowmasters came to make a ruckus. Like, this was the deck that I would say was the deck to beat. You would see it everywhere. It looks like a pretty typical list. Like four Ren and 6, 3 Teferi, 3 Archon, 4 Fables. Like, that's really the core of the deck. Spend these first couple of turns applying a really impactful Planeswalker or applying this Fable the Mirror Breaker. And then, you got your Indomitable Creativities. You have your Dwarven Minds to kind of turn them on, as well as this Fable the Mirror Breaker to help you get to this Archon. So it's just a really classic deck as far as, you have all of these powerful cards by themselves. You can't really cast the Archon, but you get to play these sort of two different game plans of, I am just going to play a really good, fair game plan, and then also, wait, look, I spent 4 mana and sacrificed my creature, and here's an Archon coming for you.
Didn't Reed Duke win an event with creativity?
You're talking about the Pro Tour, or
yeah.
Wait, sorry. So that was a slightly different deck. It was like I think it was more focused on the combination between World Spine Worm and Xenagos.
Yeah.
So what it would do, you would do X's 2 and then put both of those two creatures in play, and then your opponent. So yeah, this deck is a little bit different than that deck. Definitely similar as far as, like, you're going to spend the first couple of turns not doing a whole lot other than maybe applying a Planeswalker here or there. But then once you get to these later turns, 4+, and you could get the creativity going and get some big stuff out.
Well, not doing a lot in the first few turns is exactly right, because Silva has done nothing but a couple of lands. We fetched out a Triome on the first turn and then played a tapped Dwarven Mine. Jonathan Chu going to his second turn, resolving a Preordain. We've seen a lot of Preordains today.
Yeah, totally. Jonathan is playing what I would consider is one of the most consistent 4-color decks in the format. It sounds weird to say consistent 4-color deck. But what I mean by that is, like, a lot of people are playing this deck. It's got the Delighted Halflings, the Planeswalker package, Ren and 6 Teferi. So excited to see how good Preordain is in this archetype. We only see Jonathan including 2 copies for this tournament, but I think that was just kind of a little bit of a concession to be like, one of the biggest problems with this 4-color deck in general is its consistency. As I said, this is a consistent 4-color deck. That's kind of an oxymoron. This deck is kind of clunky by nature. You have all of these really mana hungry cards, and then a mana base full of, like, some tap lands that tap for 3 colors, and some lands that don't exactly cast your spells, right, like Boseiju. So you need kind of these Delighted Halflings, these Preordains, these Fable the Mirror Breakers to keep your game plan going nice and smooth.
Absolutely. We just saw Chu attempt Fable the Mirror Breaker, but Silva had Reprieve. Lord of the Rings Tales Middle Earth card, which acts like a remand. And he's followed that up with a Renin 6 to rebuy the fetch land that we used on turn 1.
Yeah, really important Renin 6 here for Austin Silva. He needs something to kind of get the game going, and also having that reprieve to stop Jonathan from, applying any pressure on his board. So if we could see, a Dwarven Mine into a creativity here for Austin, he could be in a really commanding position.
Agreed. We're going to Jonathan choose 4th turn, and he is in the tank. Staring down a Renin 6. The jig is up with the Dwarven Mine, so Chu has to know what Silva's on, right?
Oh, totally. Is there a Dwarven Mine in play? Or
yeah,
I mean,
it's one of the tap lands, I believe.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So I mean, yeah, that kind of gives the jig up, but also like when you see Renin 6+ reprieve in your opponent's deck, there's only so many decks that you're going to be playing against that play that combination of cards. So that kind of made the jig up as well. But yeah, totally. Now Jonathan is well aware that like there could be an Archon of Cruelty entering the battlefield very soon. So he's got to consider like it's my 4th turn of the game. I have a lot of really good 4-cost cards that I want to be playing. But maybe, I could take it off a little, play this Preordain, maybe play some 3-cost card. I'm a little surprised to see him not play for any of the 4-cost cards. The One Ring, Omnath being the way that you can take over the game. So possibly he was missing the untapped land. Maybe he has like a Teferi as well that he wants to get down. I'm not exactly sure.
We're about to find out. We finished this Preordain, and Chu's got a full grip. Which way, sir? Which way do we go? It's Fury, exiling Fable the Mirrorbreaker to kill Renin 6.
Yeah, I mean, this makes some sense, right? If you're Jonathan, you just want to stop a little bit of the incremental value that the Renin 6 is going to be gaining. There's not too much value that you're going to be gaining off of Fury as the game goes on. But it looks like his hand is a little bit stacked. I see an Omnath, I see a Teferi. So like these cards are really good, going to be really important in this matchup.
Silver responds with a fetch off of the Bloodstained Mire. Picks up a 2nd Triumph. Goes to his 5th turn. Both players cutely. Silva resolves and makes a Goblin Shaman token.
So here it's definitely worth noting that Austin still has yet to play a land. It might be him missing land drop. It looks like he did miss land drop because I'm pretty sure this is the end of Jonathan's turn, so he's considering what to do with this mana. And that is not going to bode very well. It's not that his spells are necessarily that expensive. Unlike having these Omnaths and these Furies, his deck isn't exactly built like that. But he is extremely mana hungry. You're gonna want to be casting Indomitable Creativity with Spell Pierce backup, with Reprieve backup. Also casting another spell in the same turn. So missing a land drop is really detrimental for the 5-color Creativity's game plan.
So here we see, I believe that is Teferi Time Raveler. That's the Secret Lair version. That was answered with a Leyline of Binding from Silva.
Exactly, yeah. So what we saw was Teferi on the stack from Jonathan. Austin, in response, Leyline Binding, your Leyline Binding, that was on my Fable. So it actually worked out really well for Austin there. He was able to replenish the token that the Teferi was going to be bouncing and also keep his Fable in play, essentially. And now he'll just be able to finish it off.
Excellent play. Love it. Shaman token takes out Teferi as you predicted. Silva had discarded 2 cards, both a Lightning Bolt and a Flame Slash to the Fable of the Mirrorbreaker's triggered ability. Are we going to pull the trigger here? This is a fetch land from Silva.
Yeah, I mean, Austin's hitting lands, right? And before he was missing them, so that can only mean bad things possibly for Jonathan. I would not be surprised to see a possible Creativity X's2 here targeting the goblin and the shaman, and then having this backup, spell pierce. So that's my guess on what's going on here. It does seem to be a creativity X's 2 targeting these 2 tokens, and it doesn't even look like he'll need the spell pierce.
Nope. So we're gonna get to see a bunch of the deck. One Archon of Cruelty, not legendary.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly why he did it for 2, right? It's going to be super hard for Jonathan to claw back into this game just based on the way that Austin's deck is configured. So basically, it's like a very typical, all of these green, red, white, and blue cards that are really strong. The Ren and 6, the Teferi, the Leyline Binding. So it's like almost a mirror match in that sense. But now Austin just really going over the top with these Archons. And even if they are answered, he's just getting all this value the turn that they come into play. So really, really bad spot if you're Jonathan. Not what you were hoping to see.
Exactly. So we're trying to resolve some Archon triggers right now.
I mean, what? Just discard this Omnath, discard this Remnant 6. It's like all of these hard-hitting cards that are in the deck. Archon could only be, fantastic value. So
absolutely. Teferi the Mirror, or sorry, Teferi Time Raveler from Chu, followed by a concession.
Yeah, it was met with that spell pierce that I surmised Austin had when he left up the treasure, and he did in fact have it, and it was excellent for him. So basic textbook stuff here from the creativity deck, really, really good. Like basically what you want to see happening, you resolve that Fable of the Mirror Baker, but like Jonathan had the answer for it. So a little surprised to see how quick Austin was able to win after, but Austin had the answer for Jonathan's answer, and then just the threats came pouring out.
Absolutely. Is this the way you think this matchup typically goes? Does creativity typically take the first game?
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying a little bit before, the decks are really similarly composed. You have these Ren and 6s, you have these Teferis. So I think more than anything, what's important is how fast, the 4-color Omnath deck can get things going. Because I think that, with a solid Omnath draw, you have the possibility of really going over the top of what the 5-color creativity can do based on the mana. But the issue is, you don't have any really good answers to resolved Archon. And Austin knows that, he just knowing the way that the deck is set up, like, yeah, you could have a Leyline Binding, but that's not very clean, You still have to discard a card. They're still getting the value out of it. So, yeah, I think if the matchup plays out in a way where Jonathan isn't able to, get things going early with a Delighted Halfling, make that into like either a turn 2 Teferi or like a fast Ren and 6 or into a turn 3 Omnath, it's going to be really hard because of these hard-hitting Archons from Austin's 5-color creativity deck.
So let's talk about choose position. You're down a game, and you've got this 4-color list. The world's your oyster as far as sideboarding is concerned. What do you think he's going to do?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the sideboard, we've got one copy of Elish Norn, which could be really strong. Just shutting off any of the Enter's play abilities, immediately shutting off, Leyline Binding trigger, the trigger on the Archon of Cruelties. I would be really surprised not to see that one. Dovin's Veto, pretty clean answer in the same way to creativity. I'd be surprised not to see that one. And then other than that, he doesn't have all that much. We see some Endurances, some Obsidian Charmaz. This Emrakul, the Promised End. This is the sort of matchup that you expect the game to be going a good number of turns. At least, if you're Jonathan, you're not gonna win the game immediately. It's not like the same way where Austin could just kind of take over the game with an early Archon. When you're Jonathan, it's much more about just getting the value out of each of your cards and playing a little bit of a slower game plan, with these one rings and stuff. So you expect the game to go to a place where Emrakul is really impactful. So I think we'll be seeing that this game.
Excellent. Both players shuffled up, looking at our opening hands. Chu is the play, given that he lost, and he's going back for a mulligan very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, when they're not good, at least you know it, right? Just get them out of here. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I would expect to see, Jonathan kind of trimming his deck of these cards like Lightning Bolt, possibly even some Prismatic Ending. I mean, maybe not Prismatic Ending because it can answer the Ren and 6s and the Teferis, but you don't really need Lightning Bolt. It doesn't do all that much. Fury, kind of in a similar boat. It answers the Planeswalkers, but at what cost? The 2-for-1, not very great. So I think post-board, definitely with the addition of this interaction from Dovin's Vetoes, of these really heavy-hitting cards like Electron and Emrakul, the matchup definitely gets a little bit better. But we're just going to have to see, how low to the ground Jonathan can keep it.
Both players 5-1. They need a 6-2 or better to advance to day 2. Chu looking to take both of the next games. Currently on a mulligan.
Yeah, I mean, this hand looking really excellent for Jonathan. He's got a turn 1 Delighted Halfling, followed up with a Ren and 6. All he's really missing is some sort of 4-cost. I think actually there might be a 1 ring as well that he could play on turn 3. So I would say not as good as an Omnath in a matchup like this. I mean, but it's certainly comparable. There's very few answers to it. It's a very potent threat. So exactly what you want to see if you're a Jonathan fan.
Yeah, and if you're a Jonathan fan, you've got to be cheering for Delighted Halfling on the play here. That is so powerful for this deck. Austin already behind on his first turn. Let's see what he's got. It's a fetch land and a pass.
But heads up play here from Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Already deciding, I don't want this to get... Wait, is it? Yeah, I don't want this to get countered. It's legendary. I'm just going to use my Delighted Halfling mana to cast it. You could have played a land, gotten an attack in with Delighted Halfling, but opting to say, look, I know that you could possibly have Spell Pierce in your deck. In fact, I know for a fact you got Spell Pierces in your deck. I don't want my Ren and 6 getting Spell Pierced.
Yeah, absolutely. Smart play. Rebuys that Windswept Teeth. Puts Chu in a good position despite his mulligan. Going back to Silva for second turn, he deploys Boseiju, who shelters all for his own Ren and 6. And that's going to rebuy the Scalding Tarn we previously used. And ship back to Chu.
This is definitely the sort of game plan he wants to play as well. Just deploying in early Ren and 6. Looks like his hand is filled with a bunch of creativities, a silence. So I mean, assuming everything goes as planned, it's looking okay for him, for Austin. But Jonathan has a turn 3 the 1 ring, and Austin doesn't seem to have any 3-cost cards in his hand that are particularly, impactful to the board state. So I could really see Jonathan running away with this game.
Ren and 6 rebuys Windswept Teeth for Chu. I think he's going to agree with you here. 1 ring.
Yeah, I mean, Austin just sort of a nod of like, yeah, I mean, it's legendary. I can't even counter it if I wanted to. Like, even if I had this, force, like I don't know what you want from me, but yeah, it's good, I guess.
I need to know the lore behind this Delighted Halfling. Why does it make things uncounterable?
That's a good question. My guess is it was just like some really jolly homie who like they found along their journey that was just so good at like protecting the homies that like they just couldn't be countered. So that's my guess.
It's a good one. I have to ask Reed tomorrow because I think he's a huge fan of Lord of the Rings.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Let's go back to Silva for his third turn. His board looks not as great as Chew's. We've got Scalding Tarn, Renin 6, staring down the One Ring, Delighted Halfling, and a bigger Renin 6.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Austin here, you really need some sort of 3-cost card to get your game plan going. A turn 3, the One Ring is just no slouch. It's going to tap land. That's already not a 3-cost card, so you don't want to see that. But it does mean that there's likely to be some sort of answer here in like a Leyline Binding or something with the main phase tap line. So it's not the worst thing ever, but not really progressing the board isn't great either.
Okay, so Silva ticks up Renin 6 to rebuy the Scalding Tarn for the third time, one of them, and deploys Leyline Binding on the One Ring before Chew can use it. Chew's draw step. We get a peek at his hand. I see a lot of lands. Another One Ring.
Even with the lands, seems to be in a decent spot. Another One Ring is really good here. Being able to pressure your opponent's Renin 6 is not even that bad here with the Delighted Halfling, actually. So kind of keeping everything in check, progressing the board state a little bit. There is always the worry, though, as this game goes on and, Jonathan Chew doesn't really have an Omnath or anything, you've got to be worried about these Archons. You have some time, you have some answers in these Leyline Bindings, but you still got to be a little bit worried.
I imagine so. I mean, the combo deck can really just come out of nowhere, right? Silva is taking his fourth turn. We're in the tank for a little bit. We're in 6 under a little bit of pressure.
I mean, you're just not pleased to be on the back foot here at Silva, right? It's like a lot of similar things going on in the matchup, right? Like wanting the 4-cost cards to take over the game, or for the 5-color creativity deck that isn't playing the One Ring, it's a little bit different. You want your Fables to take over the game, you want your Teferi's to take over the game. So he doesn't even have, the same sort of way to claw back into the game for value with the One Ring. So it's really going to come down to whether or not he can resolve an Indomitable Creativity, whether or not he has a Teferi Time Raveler. If Fable with Mirror Breaker could get rid of some of these less good cards in his hand and find some action. So
that was a Flame Slash to take care of Delighted Halfling. That frees up Silva's Renin 6 just a little bit, and it takes away the uncounterability of certain legendary cards from Chew. Chew loses 1 down to 13 life from the One Ring's trigger, and then activates it to draw 2 cards.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan picked up an Omnath this turn, which is just huge. The biggest, I'd say, restraint that's been placed on him in this game is the number of spells that he could play every turn, right? Like, he's just firing on all cylinders every turn, and the Omnath is going to do a really good job of being able to apply, 2 or more threats every single turn for the rest of the game unless it's answered. So we're going to have to see something good from Austin, and we're going to have to see it soon.
I agree. Fetching lands has to be a chore in this deck. So I don't blame any player for taking their time with it.
Right, like, what lands are in my deck? What lands are in my hand? How much life am I at?
A lot of calculus with each fetch land.
Okay, Austin. Austin said, wait. Your fetch is on the stack, my friend. I think that definitely signals I could possibly have a leyline binding. I might want to respond with that leyline binding before you get that land. I don't really want you to be able to cast a bunch of spells. So
Oh, that's a silence.
I like that. I honestly like the silence here almost more than I like a leyline binding, because you're not getting like great value out of silence as the game goes on, right? Like, you know, against a lot of decks, it wouldn't be too bad, but the 4-color Omnath deck doesn't actually have that many counter spells. So, you know, the way that the game plays out is you're not really gonna want to see as much like, okay, silence you and then creativity. So I think this is actually a really clever use of silence, you know, shutting off the rest of Jonathan Chu's turn. I really like this play from Austin.
Boy, I live for these moments when a player finds a creative use for a card like this. That is delightful.
Yeah, totally.
So Chu says, I'll grab a shock land tapped. And pass the turn. Back to Silva.
I mean, at this point, I'm pretty sure the One Ring has just been in play for too many turns for Austin Silva to even really have too much of a shot. Because the main way that his deck wins, right, is like, yeah, I'm going to play Indomitable Creativity. I'm going to get some Archon of Cruelties into play. Like, I gained all this incremental value. But in this matchup now, the fact that, you know, the cruelty, the Archon of Cruelty is going to get value when it comes into play doesn't matter much. Jonathan has drawn so many extra cards with the One Ring, he had to discard cards himself for his turn. So, like, yeah, sure, like, I'll discard a card. I'll discard 2 if you want me to. You know, I am going to find my answers. You know, I'm going to have one of these leyline bindings. I'm going to have a Teferi. Like, I don't care. You can have your Archon.
Silva with the Hail Mary play, trying to creativity the token, but Chu with a flash in solitude. That's going to fizzle the spell, so to speak. Silva ticks up Renin 6 to ping, choose Renin 6 down. That prevents an ultimate, but I'm not sure an ultimate does anything. Does the ultimate do anything for Chu were he to do it?
I mean, you could play a bunch of prismatic endings, I guess, but I would be super surprised, you know, if the game ended up where Jonathan was like, yeah, I'm down to just, you know, ultimate this Renin 6 for very little value. It's more just like a consistent way to rebuy a fetch line every single turn for the game. So I think I agree with you. I'm a little bit surprised to see the ping down. But also, you know, we have a little bit more information about the instants and sorceries that he could possibly have. And we do know that some of them are lightning bolt, right? Which is kind of brutal with Renin 6, right? You don't want to just get lightning bolted 6 times and have the game end. Something like that. So I don't hate to see it. I guess Austin's thinking like, look, man, I got plenty of lands. Like I don't need more lands, but I could possibly lose the game to a Renin 6 ultimating on me. So I'm just gonna better be safe than sorry.
Sure. So we saw One Ring draw 3 cards for Chu at the start of this turn, followed by a Preordain. Now we're going to see something else. What do we got? That is Prismatic Ending. It's going to solve Renin 6. So now Silva's down to no non-land permanents.
I mean, it's just tough. It's just a tough one to claw back into, you know. So many cards for Jonathan Chu, so many options every single turn with the One Ring, with you know, the mana from this Renin 6 that's been in play since, you know, the beginning of the game. Just extra land every single turn, just extra cards every single turn with the One Ring. You know, he cast a Solitude on a token, pitching a Teferi. Like, you can't be happy to see something like that. It's like you're telling me you have such a plethora of cards in your hand that you can get rid of one of the best cards in the matchup. Like that is just.
Do you think it would be strategically wise for Silva to concede for time's sake?
Yeah, I wouldn't blame him if here's what it comes down to, right? If you're sitting there and you're Austin and your hand is just like really, really bad, and you don't even have an answer to the One Ring or like whatever. It looks like this is going to take down the ring. Oh no, he's scared of he's more afraid of the Ren. I don't get this.
He must be worried about being bolted to death, like you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that is tough. Like you could always get bolted to death. Like that would suck. But also, you could always just like have your opponent draw 30 extra cards every turn for the entire game. So like both are like not great, right? I'm with Austin on that, but I think that I would have been a little bit quicker to try to get rid of this One Ring. It doesn't even matter at this point exactly what cards are in Jonathan's hand. It's just the fact that there's more than 7 of them, and Austin is just like barely on 2. It's just going to be so hard to claw back into.
2 at 14, thanks to the ring's trigger on his upkeep. He's tapped it to draw 4 cards. And now he's just going to do whatever he wants. Oh, there's that ultimate we've been mentioning, the emblem.
He said, Austin, you know what you're scared of? Like, I don't know, but like, let's find out.
He's going to preordain a whole
bunch. Oh. Is there a preordain in his graveyard? Oh, yeah. See, that is not bad. Honestly, that is not really bad, right? Every land in your deck is just instead, I could find a really live spell. Like when throughout, so many turns of this game, it's been putting lands back into the hand with the Ren and 6. So, yeah, I mean, I understand why he was scared, right? He kind of feels like, I have nothing going on. Like if I let Jonathan just draw through most of his deck with Preordain, like every land being a Preordain, how am I going to win? So, yeah, it makes a little bit more sense why he was scared. I think I understand it now. But in the same token, it's like, how are you going to beat a One Ring with 4 counters on it?
Well, Delighted Halfling makes Teferi Time Raveler uncounterable for Chew. By Misty Rainforest.
And if you're Jonathan, like like you just get to relax so much once you have a Teferi in play. It's like, yeah, like my opponent is just F6'd every single turn for the whole game. Like when it's my turn, they just have to sit there and watch me do whatever I want. Like that just feels so good.
Another Delighted Halfling joins the party. And Silva really on his back foot now. The clock is slow, but Chu is going to just play an incredible amount of spells next turn, right?
3, 7, 9 effective mana for legendary spells here. That's before a land has even been played, and that's also before any cards have been drawn with a One Ring. I could only imagine that an Omnath would be found. Like that's even more mana. The Omnath is basically free, so then it's like an Omnath could be played, followed up by, I don't know, whatever else he wants.
Whatever he wants to do. Another Dwarven Mine. It's going to bring a friend. Where's our token friend? That's off of a fetch land. There it is. Little dwarf friend.
Mean, you don't hate it, right? Like, you got to start somewhere. And where Austin's decided he can start is, look, I'm going to get a token. I'm going to try to creativity it. I'm going to hope that that's enough. Yeah, maybe for 2. Like, I could get 2 in play. Like, that can't be too bad. And also, eventually, we're just going to have enough lands here to just start hard casting Archons. Austin says, look, you can bounce my Archons all day with your Teferis. I'm just going to keep playing it. And also, yeah, for a lot of this game, Jonathan hasn't necessarily had to be worried about how many counters are on the One Ring. His life total's getting kind of scary low.
You're right. He's really wanting an Omnath, right? To gain some life back?
Totally. I mean, as soon as you find an Omnath, it kind of, counteracts a lot of this life that he's been losing for the One Ring. But it's certainly one that he's going to need to find soon, because that's just 2 turns away from the One Ring simply killing him. Luckily, though, you can always play a second copy. Choose to keep the one that has less counters on it, and I would be surprised if we don't see that pretty soon, because you don't, at this point when you're Jonathan, you've been drawn so many cards the entire game. Like the options that you have, are huge. Wait, what? Anyone know what happened here?
Well, Silva tried to cast Indomitable Creativity for X equals 2, but Chu answered with a Dovin's Veto. It looks like they had a judge call, but instead of, yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
Silva realized the clock, so he just conceded for a game 3.
Gotcha. I mean, hey, that's what you need to do, right? If you're sitting there and you just don't have a good play like turn after turn, it's like what are you gonna do? Just keep playing this game where you just hope your opponent like bricks on a possible spell that they could cast for like maybe 6 draw steps, you know, like forgets that they can bounce their own stuff. It's just like forget about it. Go to the next game. We still got time left in the round and we want to finish.
When you're at this point in the tournament, banking on your opponent's mistakes is a pretty loose strategy.
Yeah, right.
So Silva and Chu go into game 3. Shuffling. I saw a Sundering Titan.
Yeah, I mean, I love to see that. I think that's a really smart bring in here for Austin. He's kind of saying, look, it's kind of the same thing that I've been saying all throughout. Like, Archon, it's only going to be doing so much as these games go late, right? Like, it's not just going to win the game. These leyline bindings answer it. These Teferis answer it. And he said, look, I want a card that is going to do something really similar to the Archon as far as like, you know, come in and have a lasting effect. But then it's going to do it again. So I think that's a really interesting one for him to bring in. The one thing about it, though, is it's hard for it to consistently be the Sundering Titan, right? Because I find it hard to believe that he can, you know, afford to take all of the Archon of Cruelties out of his deck and still have that Indomitable Creativity game plan. So, yeah, I think that the Sundering Titan's a smart one to bring in. Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I don't really understand how he plans on executing it. Possibly, you know, bring in a package of like this Elish Norn Mother of Machines, this Sundering Titan, trigger it multiple times when it comes into play. Like just get rid of all of Jonathan's mana. I mean, yeah, it's going to be interesting. We'll see how it plays out.
That was actually my next question. Was does Sundering Titan replace one Archon, or do you bring it in as a 5th threat?
Yeah, I mean, I would guess it probably replaces at least one. You know, we got the 3 Archons. That is much more, you know, a concession to these Tron decks. I feel like that is probably playing against Tron. Like maybe bring in the 2 Terrastons and the Elish Norn, bring up the Archons, just blow up every land in sight. Which I don't mind. You know, that is a not a bad one. But yeah, in this matchup, I think it's a little bit different. You know, you don't want to even really draw Archon as a card in your deck. You know, it's not really something that you can cast. It's not like you want to draw Sundering Titan either, but it's hard to have too many of these cards in your deck, right? Because you kind of want to keep up with your opponent and still play that Ren and 6 game plan, still play that Teferi game plan, still have answers to, you know, Delighted Halflings and be able to keep up with Omnath. So you don't want too many dead cards.
A lot of angles to cover.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, looks like we are shuffling up for the 3rd game here. Winner gets to breathe a sigh of relief. Loser has to fight for day 2 next round.
Right. I mean, it's always tough back against the wall. You know, eight round day 1 and you're 5-2. It's like, ooh, I really got something to prove. So this is a big match. You know, even just being able to relax going into that last round, feeling like, yeah, I'm 6-1. Like it doesn't matter if I win or lose. Like I get to show up tomorrow. So this is a big one.
Choose on a mulligan, and so is Silva. Both players bottomed a card. Silva starts us off with St. Meyer. Over to Chu. Turn 1 for game 3 is a tapped Triome.
Yeah, it's like you only have so many I mean, just looking at Jonathan's list, he actually doesn't have any one cost interaction. Like no spell pierce, anything like that in the 75. So he's probably like fine. Like, yeah, I'll play my Triome. It's similar as if I had just fetched for my Triome. Like, not too unhappy with it. I think what's really going to be important here is like the texture of the rest of his hand. Like, is there a Renin 6 on 2? Is there possibly a Teferi on 3? Really hoping, at this point in the game, as the turns go on, you don't want to draw your Delighted Halflings anymore. You kind of miss that window by having a turn 1 tap land for it to be too impactful as the game goes on. So really, this game I'd say is playing into what Austin's hoping to happen. Turn 2 Renin 6 resolves. My opponent, not much going on. So.
Ooh, turn 2 Leyline takes care of the Renin 6 that Silva had deployed. I love the Triome's Leyline of binding interaction.
Yeah, definitely a good one to have there for Jonathan. Doesn't want to let Austin get too much value out of this Renin 6, so.
Turn 3 for Silva is a deployed fetch land and a pass. Going over to turn 3 for Chu.
I mean, there's just a huge problem in this game already. I was saying earlier, how this game looked like it was going well for Austin. He had the turn 2 Renin 6. Jonathan didn't have very much. Yeah, having a Spell Pierce here is not bad. It's a good answer, but his hand is just filled with more things like that. A bunch of Spell Pierces, a Silence, just a lot of cards that aren't very good. And we are getting to the point of the game where what's important is like the potency of the threats that you're casting. Luckily for Austin, Spell Pierce is really good against the cards of One Ring. So if that's all Jonathan has going on for him the next couple of turns, this game is going to play out pretty well for Austin. But if there's any creatures,
creatures not answered by Spell Pierce, but Renin 6 was. Austin just Spell Pierced, choose Renin 6. So now neither player has Renin 6.
Looks like we'll be seeing that expressive iteration this turn, so a little bit of a heads-up play for Austin waiting. He decided last turn I wouldn't be able to cast, like a Renin 6 off of this expressive iteration plus get a land, so I would much rather wait a turn, give myself a little bit more options while casting this expressive iteration, just leave up my Spell Pierces in the previous turn. So heads up wait, but it looks like it didn't really pay off, ending up just having to remove a Flame Slash that he can't cast.
Yeah, that's gross. Silva was definitely hoping for a land in one of those 3 slots and did not find a single one. Chu's going to go to the 4th turn, and he's got a 4th land. Windswept Heath, Renin 6 number 2.
And here is the weakness of Spell Pierce. Jonathan heads up place, like not even, seemingly could have been not that heads up, he could have just played the Renin 6, don't want to give away information that he has land in his hand. But he played a land beforehand to make sure to play around the Spell Pierce. And what that's going to do is the more turns that go on in this game, the less value that Austin is going to be able to get out of these Spell Pierces. Jonathan's just going to be playing land after land, and eventually the One Ring won't even be able to be Spell Pierced.
Silva's going for a Leyline Binding on Chu's Leyline Binding to free up Silva's Renin 6 so that Silva can hopefully rebuy a fetch land and get back in the game. It looks like Chu has an answer of some sort. He's fetching now for a basic plains into Boseiju. Channeling Boseiju, Who Shelters All.
Fine, right? Like, it probably one of the worst answers Jonathan could have here, because Austin still gets a land out of it, and that's exactly what he's hoping for. When you see your opponent Leyline Binding and they decide, I'm not going to get rid of your Renin 6, like I need lands for mine, you're already in a spot that you're pretty happy with. So it doesn't feel great to have to use the Boseiju like this, but at the same time, probably wasn't doing too much else with this mana, so it's not too bad.
I'm sorry, it's Boseiju Who Endures. My mistake. Uh, turn 5 for 2 is deploying a fetch and a pass. Did Silva draw a 5th land?
Okay, so Jonathan is playing. He has the One Ring in his hand, and he's playing this game so well in a way to play around the spell pierces. I just really like that he's been paying close attention to the fact that Austin has been trying to leave up mana every turn of this game. And he's like, yeah, I know that you already cast a spell pierce on me, but I really feel like you have another one. So I think that's just really heads up.
He's got that 6th sense you need for tournament play. 2 ticks up, rebuys a fetch, redeploys Windswept Teeth. Can now pay for Spell Pierce if he wanted to.
That's exactly what he's thinking. Yeah, let me jam this One Ring. If you got a spell pierce, I got 2 mana. No problem.
Silva says, do it anyway.
and if you're Jonathan, you're like, this is fishy, man. Like why? You're just throwing away spell pierce? No, I got 2, buddy. I got 2.
So Chu fetches in response. Excuse me. Sees that his basics are both covered in play. Grabs a shock land, Sacred Foundry, I believe. Pays for that spell pierce, and now Silva's got the 3rd spell pierce of the game.
Hey, I mean, like I said, it's like his hand just being a bunch of spell pierces is just so mopey. It's like you in these matchups, you don't want to just sit around being like, yeah, I'm gonna counter your spell. You want to be the one who's deploying these planeswalkers, who's getting this value. So not lovely to see, but I think we're seeing a creativity here though. So that is really great. We've found a silence, followed it up with Dwarven Mind into creativity, which is exactly what you're looking for here if you're Austin. And then you're just hoping that Jonathan doesn't have an answer.
Yeah, this is like a last-ditch effort for Silva because he only has 1 card left in hand, so this needs to work. We're going to flip him over until we find probably an Archon, but it might be a Sundering Titan.
I bet. He was hoping for the double Sundering Titan killer stuff. I mean, the thing is, look, Elish Norn is so good in these matchups where he's just decided, like, I don't really care if I hit just an Elish Norn. Like, it's similarly good as these Archons, as these other hard hitters, as far as it shuts off so much of their deck, or like it's a must answer threat in the same way. Sure. And it's pretty cheap. So I think he kind of decided, like, I don't want these uncastable Archons. Maybe he took all of them out, honestly. I wouldn't even be too surprised. Like, shaved a couple creativities, took out all the Archons, just kept in the one Elish Norn and the Sundering Titan, and kind of has that as more of his plan. So
Prismatic Ending solves Elish Norn for Chu. Back over to Silva. Silva's got Fable the Mirror Breaker.
5 mana Prismatic Ending. Now that is nice.
She's going to fetch in response. And we've got Dovin's Veto.
That's a big one.
Do you like that play there? Do you like vetoing the Fable?
Oh, I love it. So if you're in Jonathan's spot, you're sitting over here, you're gaining tons of value from your Ren and 6 every turn, and Austin is just struggling to make a play every turn. So one of the best ways that if you're Austin that you could claw back into the game is maybe getting rid of some of the cards in your hand that aren't doing anything, some extra lands, maybe even a spell pierce, say the 4th one, who knows. Just some cards that are clearly not potent threats, and then turning them into cards that are. So really heads up play from Jonathan, recognizing that the game is sort of in a state where you need to stop your opponent from digging deeper into their deck, from finding these cards that matter.
Sure. It's very Time Raveler from Austin is met with
Dovin's Veto.
Dovin's Veto.
Yeah, the old Misty Rainforest, your Teferi. I mean, they just agreed, right? Like, Misty Rainforest is wild this game, so hey, I respect that.
Another Ren and 6 to add to the Ren and 6 emblem for Chu. Now Chu just needs a Lightning Bolt or a Preordain to start doing some cool stuff.
I mean, here we see why Austin was so terrified of that Ren and 6 ultimate every game, right? It's like, oh, Preordain's coming through. I mean, every land. See, this is really where we're seeing. No, just like this is where we're really seeing the power of Preordain, right? It's like, yeah, like this deck before just didn't play any of these mopey Serum Visions. None of this consider stuff. But hey, we could find some room for a couple Preordains, and now the Ren and 6 ultimate is actually beneficial, right? It's like I can't possibly draw a dead card for the rest of the game because all my lands, they're Preordains.
That's hot. Preordain, such a good card on its own, but it's even better when you get like cool little synergies like this. There's a Flash Solitude. That's going to be a clock for Chew.
I mean, that's when you know things aren't going well, right? Your opponent just flashes into Solitude to start bashing you for 3. They're like, oh, I don't need to kill anything. Like, I just want to kill you.
Solitude into tick up Ren and 6 into now we're preordaining via the Ren and 6 emblem. Boy, and this deck's just so full of haymakers too.
Just potent thread after potent thread.
Silva has a 1-card hand.
Yeah, I mean it's another, one like the last one. It's all but over for Austin as far as like nothing is going well for him. Nothing's going his way. He doesn't have the sort of incremental value cards like the Ren and 6, like the Teferi, like the One Ring that are building up the game for him. He's just kind of more relying on these haymakers, and they're not really hidden.
Well, a couple of surprise dwarfs at EOT, thanks to some fetch lands, are going to try to poke in on that.
Oh no, is this another Solitude? Oh no. He's just trying to get some stuff done with his 1/1s, man. Like, leave him be.
They're just little guys. Leave the little guys alone.
This is just brutal.
Solitude's going to eat 1 for lunch and then 1 for dinner by blocking.
Hungry.
I think. So Teferi gets to live.
Oh, I think we've got a hard cast something here. Maybe Sundering Titan? I mean, why else are we main phase fetching up our 8th land? Let's find out.
It's another little guy.
Hey, I mean, Dwarven Mind is a cool card.
Followed by creativity. This is kind of exciting. Sundering Titan might mean something, given that 2 Solitudes are gone, Teferi can't bounce it right away, and Jonathan's going to get like 5 for 1 on this.
It's literally just, I will kill 5 of your lands, please, thank you. He's like, oh yeah, like I'm so cool, I got to play Triome so I can cast these Leyline Bindings for cheap. He's like, you know what else you get to do? Get all your lands killed by Sundering Titan. That is brutal.
Is it a 7/10? I think it's a 7/10. Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's big. Is this going to be fast enough or good enough for Silva to finish this game? Or is he playing for the draw here? Tick up on Teferi.
I really think this is a winnable one. Like, I mean, it's possible. Oh, he's Besagio as well. I mean, yeah, that's a bit much. I guess what I was gonna say is that I was really surprised to see. Well, all his lands are dead. Oh my! I was really surprised to see Jonathan even play that Solitude. I know that it was a really big blowout Solitude. It was incredible value for him. But it left, the gates open for something to happen without having the Dovin's Veto up. So it's seeming like it doesn't really matter here. He had the Besagio. He has a plethora of answers for anything that could possibly come. But it's a little surprising to see, like, him not just try to leave it up. And then, he could have solituded the Sundering Titan. But it's looking like it doesn't really matter.
No, I thought Chu was going to go for an achievement unlocked by winning without a land in play, but he played one, attacked, and that's it for Silva. He wraps it up. Too much damage on the battlefield. Well,
So much you can do there.
Indeed. Oh, back to us. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I mean, that was a really interesting match because we got to see really both sides of this creativity deck, you know, coming out really early, hard hitting, good Archon draw, you know, just getting off turn 4, turn 5 creativity with a bunch of these 1 mana cards to back it up. But then we also saw like the really, I would say, bad side of the deck where it's just a bunch of these interaction cards that aren't that good. You know, not too many cards that are just really good on their own. You know, you do have these Sefaris, you do have these Ren and 6s, but unlike, you know, the 4-color Omnath deck from Jonathan, you don't have Omnath. You don't have the One Ring. You know, it's going to be hard to win these games that are going into the later stages if you don't have the One Ring in your deck. If you aren't casting an early Omnath or even an late Omnath, you know, if you're relying on simply creativity, you're going to need to get that creativity going. And as we saw there, it wasn't.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with round 8 once the pairings come up. See you soon.